All right, we're all set.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. This is the Compass Way to School Pathways. So we have all of the experts from operations and IT here. We did a little collaboration. Originally planned to present this at the retreat, but had to do a little pivot, and we're going to deliver it here now. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to cover. We're going to go through some basic navigation, dashboards, contact manager, and some FERPA. Our mission and vision, as always, as well as our values, and talk about teamwork. We have all of operations and IT working together on this one. So you're going to hear from all of us. First off, I want to say we have a lot to cover. So we're going to try to capture all of your questions in a Padlet so we don't lose any in the chat. So Vanessa, if you want to go ahead and add that link into the chat, you can add your question into the Padlet at any time. So this way, even if we run out of time, we won't lose any questions and we can continuously share them with the group. Thank you, VP. All right, and David Brash is going to start us off with some basic navigation in the SIS.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and cover just a few minutes worth of basic navigation in our SIS. We did have a few questions about this last year, and I know that we've all been on break, and just want to make sure that nothing gets lost in translation here and everyone knows how to use the system. So as you guys are aware, hopefully, our school pathway setup consists of an oversight and 3 different scopes. And I just wanted to make it clear to everyone that these are there to identify the different charters, and you'll be able to find information in all 3 of the scopes, LA, San Diego, and YOLO, as well as the oversight. The easiest way to jump to a specific scope, if you know where the scholar is and the information that you need to look up, you would go to district and oversight, and you would be presented with this screenshot here, and you would just click jump over on the right hand side, and that will take you to those specific scopes. Another key important piece of information, just letting you know, here are the beginning parts of the URLs that would be located in the address bar, showing you what area you are in. So if you're ever navigating through, every time you click, it opens a new tab, and you probably end up with a bunch of tabs like I do every day. And if you're unsure which scope you're in, it's easy to just look up at the URL. The oversight one would say oversight, YOLO would say YOLO, and so on and so forth for LA and San Diego. The next important part of our basic navigation here is going to be your rosters. So again, you would go to your specific scope and go to teachers, PLS student rosters, and you would see all of your scholars that are assigned to you in there with important information there. So first, you want to make sure you're logged into the specific scope. There are some key identifying information here that I just wanted to point out for the special needs. I've identified the color coding for the different stars there. Blue is SPED, green is 504, and yellow is designated as a homeless. And then there's a couple of other bits of information that help you identify a scholar. And that's going to be a local ID, a district ID, and an SSID. And I've kind of identified what each one of those means. The local ID is assigned based on the scope. I would not use this to look up a scholar because the local ID can be the same across all scopes. So you could have the same ID number in San Diego as in YOLO. You're going to want to use the SSID or district ID that's unique regardless of the scope. That will definitely easily help you identify the specific scholar that you're looking for. And then the last bit of information is the basic student search. And the basic student search, again, this question has come up quite a bit when someone is looking for a specific scholar and they're not able to find it, or it shows that they're not there. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not enrolled. It might mean that you're not looking at the oversight level. If you search for a scholar at the oversight level, it will search all of the scopes and present the information to you that way. But if you happen to be in a specific scope like LA and you're looking for a scholar in San Diego, you're going to get no search results. So you definitely want to make sure that you're in that specific scope or you're doing it from the oversight level. So you make sure you find and identify the scholars that you need. And I will go ahead and hand this off, and we're going to cover the scholar dashboards.
Okay, so once you navigate through the scholar list or your rosters, and you'll be able to check your scholar information. The scholar dashboard is the go-to place for all information on scholars. It provides at-a-glance information on enrollment records, household information, registration documents, staff associations, classes. You're able to jump to contact manager, view test scores, and other general student notes. This section should also be reviewed prior to initiating contact with scholars and learning coaches. I do want to cover the special program icons found throughout rosters and also the scholar dashboard. We've linked a icon description guide. One key note I want to point out: completely filled stars, that means they're enrolled in the program. If the asterisk is half filled out, that either means that scholar has information regarding to that special program, whether they've been in that program or are in the process of being enrolled in that program. Okay, and again, this just provides that overview we just covered. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to be sharing my screen now to walk you through the staff dashboard and the PLS student roster. Okay, so as David mentioned, in oversight, you can jump to the other 3 scopes. But first I want to show you in oversight the staff dashboard. So you go teachers and then staff dashboard and staff dashboard. And I'm going to switch to a teacher so that you can actually see the scholars listed. So here you can see your name and demographic information, employment history, credentials, job classification. And as you scroll down, you can view the 3 scopes that you have scholars in currently as of today. And the blue triangles here to the right of their names will jump you to that individual scope for the PLS student roster in that scope. If you wanted to only see your Los Angeles scholars, for example, you could click that here and click refresh list. And then that would only show you your LA scholars. Since this is a view as of today, if you have a scholar withdraw and they are the last scholar that you had in that scope, you will not be able to jump to that scope from here. You would have to go to the district oversight and then jump to that other scope here, and then go into your PLS student roster. So okay, so let's jump to the PLS student roster here in LA.
Nora, do you mind making it bigger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the PLS student roster is only visible in the individual scopes. You cannot access it from oversight. So you will need to jump into the individual scopes to see that. So here, if we go on the student roster, when we port it over by clicking that blue arrow, it shows the PLS student roster as of today. If you want to see exactly who's enrolled, especially right now, who's had MAs approved and everything, you can set it to entire school year and then search, and then you can see here the different color coding down here, and the blue indicates that they're still in a pre-enroll. The green indicates that they have a signed master agreement. Okay. So on this page, you can access the individual scholars' dashboards by clicking on their scholar's name. If you mouse over it, you will get this little pop-up that has some of their relevant information concerning which grade level they're in. If you see the enrolled there, right here, it says track A and it says 7-1 to current. We see that they're blue, so it's a pre-enroll, so that's why they have a 7-1 start date on that. But if I mouse over one that already has an MA signed, it indicates it's 6/15 to 8/28. That's because they were a returning scholar, but the 8/28 indicates that that pre-enroll ends on 8/28, which is the current time frame that we're in, which is why it shows that. Also on this page, you can access, we go mass print reports, you can access the attendance. It's sorted by learning period. To switch to semesters, you can just click the semester button. So we can access the attendance, AWRs for en masse, when you have to do those after attendance for supervising teachers. The learning logs, but they're en masse and it's only what's been approved will show up there. Engagement logs for noting live instruction and synchronous instruction and live interaction, and then work samples where you can upload those. And that is now nice drag and drop to upload. So down here in this area with the scholars, you can click on the blue drop down next to a scholar's name, and it'll give you this area where you can see which courses they're currently enrolled in. The reports tab will show you, or you can access their attendance, AWRs, activity logs, learning logs. This is where you would go if you had to sign and archive a learning log for a learning coach. And then if you just wanted to upload individual work samples. There is a quick print area here, which is on the slides. I have it crossed out because those will not allow you to archive it, to sign and archive it. It will only print a PDF version of it. In this screen, up here near the top, under your name, you'd be able to see if you had any rejected notifications for master agreements, addendums, learning logs, and work samples. Since we put a note on them when we reject them, you'd be able to view what the issue is there. So, and then down here in this area, also on each line, you can view the local ID, student ID, grade level that they're currently in for this time period that you selected up at the top. In the student activities section, you'd be able to see, and if you moused over, you'd be able to see what activity those scholars have on their activity logs, which encompass the learning logs, course logins, live interaction, sync instruction, learning labs, all of that. But because we're not currently in session, it has no data right now and it's all grayed out. Under the special needs column, you can view which special programs they have. Parent info can be found here if you do that drop down for each scholar. And then the parent phone number and the birth date of the scholar is also here. Just double checking that I didn't miss anything. Okay, and then on the links tab, for a scholar, you can view their accommodations and releases here. School activities, if they're in any clubs, can be viewed there. Contact manager can be accessed here for the scholar. And then a few other things, a college and career indicator as well. And that's it for my section.
Good morning. I'm going to go over a brief contact manager overview. Basically going over what contact manager is, how to use it, where to access it, and why it's important to use contact manager as well. So basically, contact manager is an internal tool for all staff to track communication and contact with families. I know that certain departments and teams utilize other tools and within their own teams, but this is really something for all staff to have access to. Contact manager, it creates contact lists for teachers that are associated with the students. So you automatically have a list of all the students on your roster. That makes it easy for you as well. And you can save notes in bulk for multiple scholars and siblings to make that easier as well. So contact manager, let's see, provides historical information as well. So it's something that we can use when we're looking up a student if they happen to have dropped off and we're trying to find out any sort of information. We can see useful information. Did they let us know that they were moving, that they were transferring, they were withdrawing? All that information can live in contact manager and stay in their educational record. And one thing to also note that I think there has been some questions about this is that this contact manager is part of their educational record. It's not included in their CUME file, but it can also be subpoenaed at any time. So it's important to remember that when you're entering information in contact manager as well. As far as where to access contact manager, you have to make sure you're in a scope, and you can either select it from the drop down from the administration tab, the teacher pages, or directly from the scholar dashboard as well. And what to log in contact manager, this can vary for every department, and they'll use it. Every department can use it differently. So it's best to talk to your supervisor as far as the parameters of when to use and what to track in contact manager. But basically, connection meetings, any sort of attempts at contacting students, adding that note in contact manager, selecting the area of focus, and making sure that you include so that other departments, when they do attempt to reach a scholar, they kind of have a picture of that scholar and their situation and any sort of challenges or what communication attempts have been made. We also have a new residency policy that we are putting in place this year. And so there are going to be areas that we're going to have to know in contact manager. More to come. I don't want to give away too much, but we're going to definitely be utilizing that this year. Also contact information updates. So we do have sometimes where an ST might have a best email for a family or a best phone number, but we don't have that. We can send them the change of contact, but they don't always fill it out. So something like that would be useful to add in contact manager as well, so that other departments have the best contact information and things like that available to them as well. And we all know that email is not the best way to loop in staff on information like this. So something like adding a contact manager note is the best way to loop everyone in so they can, again, understand the scholar a little bit better. And as far as also, yeah, next slide, please. So you can contact select students from the drop-down menu on your roster, and you can also loop in other staff as well. So if you need to loop in counseling or someone from enrollment, someone from the records team, you can flag them, and they will receive a notification flag in the SIS as well. And they will be able to take the next steps or take any action if needed. And you can notify them in there. They'll get a notification in the SIS, but you can also let them know whether it was a phone call, an email. There's areas of focus as well that you can, whether it's truancy, whether it's I think withdrawal, all that kind of stuff. It can be noted in here as well. And the next slide. Sorry, Danielle. No, can you go to the contact manager notifications? There you go. Sorry. So for staff that have been flagged, this is where they will find it in the top right-hand corner of of the CIS. And so this is also scope specific. So you'll have notifications for YOLO, San Diego, and LA. And you can click on view notifications and you'll get kind of a brief overview of what that note is. And the flag kind of correlates to the area of focus. And this is where you can kind of resolve them, and you can get looped into whether or not you need to take action, or if you're just being looped into a situation. And so some of the best practices for Contact Manager as well are to avoid kind of copying and pasting an email. Really just try to keep it brief, try to condense the information that you're adding into Contact Manager. Make sure that you're factual and exclude opinions, and make sure that, again, just keep in mind that these are part of their educational records and can be subpoenaed. So we're going to stay away from any sort of evaluative language, diagnosing a scholar, any sort of opinions or anything like that. Really keeping it brief is the best scenario. And then also making sure that you're ensuring that you're documenting everything in a timely manner, making sure that it is done as soon as possible. Usually, like if you're contacting a family, you're in their dashboard anyway. So I would just recommend doing it right then and there, or doing it weekly or whatever works for you, but making sure it's timely so that people are looped in as soon as things are happening. And also ensuring the scholar's privacy at all times as well. Next slide, please. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to go over is the CUME files. This is something that's also available and accessed from the student dashboard. We have just started this last year, so I'm not sure if everyone's aware of this, but the records team, as soon as we do get a CUME file for a scholar, we add the link into their dashboard. So from the dashboard, you click on the drop-down tab of the CUME file, scroll down, and then there is a link that you can copy and paste and search, and you can have access to their CUME file immediately. So this is much more helpful. That we definitely wanted to loop everyone in that has access. Once you get a scholar, you can kind of get a better understanding of their educational needs as well. So this is something new. I hope you find it helpful.
All right, good morning. So Lindsay talked about Contact Manager, and pretty much all our staff has talked about a lot of our scholar information. So we're going to talk about FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Kind of goes hand in hand with all our data in our CIS. So a little bit of background information on FERPA. Next slide, please, Danielle. Thank you. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act has been a federal law since 1974, and it affects virtually all academic institutions in the country. It provides learning coaches and eligible scholars 18 and over the assurance that information will be kept private and confidential with a focus on educational records. Education records are defined as those records, files, documents, and other materials which may contain information directly related to a scholar and are maintained by the school. However, within educational records, there are two identifying categories that separate the level of confidentiality within the scholar information. The reason we are bringing this to your attention is because as a CCS staff member, you have access to this information, and you may get questions to confirm or verify as you are working with families. The first category is considered directory information, which is categorized as public and disclosable. Think of this as sort of information you would typically find in your phone book. That could be name, date of birth, grade level, contact information of the scholar. The second category is personally identifiable information, or PII, which we must keep confidential with consideration to a few guidelines. Just like with any law, there are exceptions that will be revealed in a little later in this presentation. Next slide, please. So CCS has defined the following categories within a scholar's educational records. We have directory information, which is information that is generally not considered harmful or an invasion of privacy if released. It can be disclosed to third-party outside organizations without a parent's prior written consent. Outside organizations include, but are not limited to, education and charter school advocacy groups and companies that manufacture graduation items, such as class rings or yearbooks if requested. Parents or eligible scholars may elect to block the disclosure of this information. You would identify this request with a FERPA block alert on the scholar dashboard, and that could be requested via email. There's under our handbook, there's a policy that outlines what the procedure is. CCS has designated the following as directory information: scholar's name, address, SSID or their local ID, the learning coach's address or email address, the scholar email, dates of attendance, grade level, etc. Personally identifiable information, or PII, must be kept confidential and can only be disclosed without consent to the parties listed in the slide, or in the next slide, I'm sorry. CCS designated the following as personally identifiable: assessment information, grades, like report card grades, social security numbers, schedule, their class schedule, or even their bell schedule if we had one, IEPs, 504s, disciplinary records, etc. Please note scholar information, whether it's directory or PII, it should only be shared with authorized contacts unless the person meets a disclosure exception, which we'll go over in the next slide. Don't worry, we'll be providing a list for you on that, but it can get confusing when trying to identify what is acceptable or not when discussing sensitive information pertaining to a scholar. The directory information may be, again, disclosed outside organizations, since this is information that is not generally considered harmful or an invasion of privacy. On the other hand, when handling the PII, we must exercise caution, as it may not be disclosed unless the requesting party meets one of the disclosure exceptions. As mentioned earlier, so the parent or scholar, if they do not want the directory information to be disclosed without prior written consent, the policy that is currently in the handbook, I believe, is that the request must be written to the superintendent and CEO at the time of enrollment or re-enrollment. I'll double check the handbook for this year, but I believe it has remained the same. So once that request has been made, that would be considered the FERPA block that would be added to the scholar's dashboard, which would be a floating note. So it's a yellow note right on the pin to the scholar's dashboard. So here's a best practice. To verify you're speaking to an authorized contact, consider requesting for verification of the scholar's full name, date of birth, and physical address when contacting a parent or guardian or anyone who's giving you a cold call about a particular scholar. And this could go, organization-wide. It doesn't necessarily have to be about just communication with the supervising teacher. This could be within records, enrollment, etc. We all have to, this is a best practice that everyone should be doing. If you established a relationship with a scholar's learning coach or authorized contact, you may skip this step at your discretion. When emailing personally identifiable information, please double check the intended recipient and attachments to ensure the proper item is selected before hitting the send button. Next slide, please. So we talked a lot about the personally identifiable disclosure exceptions. In this slide, this is how we've outlined who we would be able to release this information to. So FERPA permits the disclosure of personally identifiable information without consent of the parent or eligible scholar, should the disclosures meet certain conditions. So according to our policy, this includes requests from the following: CCS staff, medical or law enforcement, members of the board or other accrediting organizations, attorneys, parents of scholars that are 18 and older for IRS purposes, authorized state representatives or auditors, and any other officials of another school or post-secondary institution. In essence, CCS staff members may share personally identifiable information amongst the listed groups should they have a legitimate educational related interest. Be sure again to double check the intended recipient and the attachments containing personally identifiable information. Okay, so in this slide, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick demonstration. If I can share my screen, please. Okay. So everyone should be able to see my test scholar in Los Angeles. So this is not any real information, but what I wanted to highlight on this screen is that if you scroll to the bottom, under the view profile area, this is all contact information for both the scholar and any authorized contacts. Authorized contacts could be parent or legal guardian, a caregiver. It could be an aunt or uncle, just depending if the parent or legal guardian or caregiver has given authorization to those folks. They would all be listed here. These are all authorized contacts. And so to differentiate between the two, in the SIS, one is listed as the primary, so that would be the learning coach. The primary person doesn't necessarily have to be the parent or guardian. Most of the time, that's what we see. But sometimes, you know, they might want to authorize an aunt or uncle to be the primary or the learning coach of a scholar, and that's perfectly fine. They're giving that authorization. But that's how you would differentiate who the learning coach is here on the scholar's dashboard. You have contact information such as cell phone. This would be changed if it's just a home phone. Physical address and mailing address of the learning coach. Most of the time, it might be the same as the physical and mailing address of the scholar. Sometimes it can be different just depending on every scholar's situation. But for the most part, we do see it matching. You can see that FERPA block. So this particular family decided that they did not want their directory information to just be released without their prior consent. So they wanted us to add a FERPA block. And at the top here, there's a custody issue. So if it's highlighted or in red text, I guess, for custody issues, it means there's something going on with this family. And you can click on it and it will take you to the med tab, which stands for medical. But at the very top, it will show you exactly what the custody issue is. Maybe the mom holds educational rights, but dad has physical custody. They share ed rights for the scholar, so they both have to make decisions on the scholar's education. It's just that the scholar lives primarily with dad. So every situation for each scholar is going to be different. This is just an example. And so you can kind of see exactly what is going on with that particular scholar. And this usually gets added on after our records department receives a court order or custody documents from either parent or guardian, and we add that in here. All right. Stop sharing. All right, so our help desk. So for the operations help desk, it's our one-stop shop for internal support requests related to enrollment, master agreements, and or addendums, attendance withdrawals, etc. We cover a lot of ground there. And it falls under the operations purview. So whatever we oversee, that's usually it gets routed to the right person, whichever question that you or problem category, I think is what it says in the help desk that you select. That way you are not stuck trying to figure out who does what again. It kind of just does that work for you. And then David, did you want to talk about the IT help desk?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone again. So the IT help desk, I'm sure you're all familiar with. We've provided a link in here for it, but you can also go to compasscharters.org/support and submit a ticket for any kind of issues that you're having with computers, iPads, login, school pathways, pretty much anything Compass that's IT related. You just want to make sure when you fill out the ticket information, you provide us with as much information as possible, and screenshots are definitely a plus. A lot of times we're not able to reproduce issues because it could be specific to your system. So any kind of screenshots to help us see what you're seeing definitely help us troubleshoot everything more quickly and get you a resolution more quickly. And that's going to conclude our presentation, and I'll pass it back over to Dr. Danielle Gamez.
Thank you. Oh, thanks for sharing the Padlet again. We're going to jump into the Padlet. So operations and IT team, you can come off mute and just grab some of these. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see the Padlet, or is it still a presentation?
We can see the Padlet.
Okay, cool. Let's see, where do we want to start? Oh, there's a lot. We may not get through all of these, but that's why we collected them here. So we can answer them and everybody can see the answers to the questions. So Lisa says, will STs have access to all of these links? Some of them say access denied. Lisa, can you clarify which links you do not have access to?
Yeah, let me go back and look. We always don't have access to things that in the SIS. Let's see. Accommodations release says access denied.
Accommodations, okay.
Let's look.
Okay, maybe IT is responsible for all permissions. I don't know if IT wants to speak to some of that.
Yeah, college and career indicator access denied. I don't know if that's something we need to have access to. But a lot of times in this is there's things that seem like we should be able to look at, and then a big red box pops up and it says access denied.
Yeah, we would need to know a little bit more specifically what screens you have access to. If you want to grab some screenshots of and tell us where you're navigating to when those pop up, we can take a look to see if it's information that you guys need access to. I know a lot of it is like counselor specific or SPED specific, but we can definitely make some changes if it is stuff that needs to be seen.
Okay, thanks. I'll try to send you a screenshot next time something comes up that I feel like I should have access to.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's probably the best thing to do, because it's gonna be really different for every role. And that's kind of the tricky part, that there's so many different roles within the SIS and they all require different types of access. So anytime that comes up, I would think that's the best thing to do too, David, is to screenshot it and have that information for IT. The other question, the ES have access to all the links, like that depends as well, like I was saying with the different roles. So it would depend. If you come across a link you think you should have access to, but don't, David, you want them to use the help desk for that then?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool.
I did that question, Danielle, so maybe I need to reach out to you guys to make sure they have access to everything I'm asking them to do now.
Okay.
Yep.
So next question, how soon after a scholar is enrolled does their CUME file get uploaded? This is a great resource for incoming scholars. Yes, it is. And I have to say, Lindsay and her team, like the scope of that project, when we took it on, I was like, this seems nearly impossible. we went through every scholar record we currently had and made sure that it was accessible into the SIS. So dating back to every single scholar that we had. So it was a very large project they completed last year. And so now the process is when we get a new enrollment, we submit a records request to the losing school. And we are supposed to get that record within, what is it, 10 days, Lindsay? Something like
You
that,
get
2
like
weeks.
5. Mhm.
Yeah. So, and then our awesome records team, as soon as when they receive it, that's in the SIS in less than 5 days. So this is the linchpin though. It's when we receive it from the schools. So during this time of year, schools everywhere across California are completely inundated with records in and records out. And so there's usually a large backlog in the fall. Lindsay and her team are not behind. They're super on top of it, but we may not get the record as quickly as we like. But just know that as soon as it's received within 5 to 10 days, her team has that in the SIS. So that was a big improvement from over the last year. Let's see, can rosters be manually created for staff? Our team tutors and resource specialists, we aren't tied to scholars in the SIS. We're really helpful to have them available on our staff dashboard so we're easier access to their information.
I can answer that one.
Yeah, team jump in.
So going back to like permissions, it depends on the role. So we would have to make sure that the tutors and or resource specialist position in the SIS have the ability to be assigned to scholars. And then from there, that gives you the permission to add to the support staff area of a scholar's record or dashboard. And you can add your support staff or your tutors or your resource specialists on there. And that would allow you to use the PLS student roster, just like an ST would, but it would come up with your list of scholars that are receiving tutors or have a tutor assigned as a support staff, I should say.
Erin asked me this question yesterday and she stumped me. I don't know.
I just was wondering if anyone else knew, but I know the teacher, so, and maybe this is like for the options program, for the teachers that are teaching those PLS sections. I know from the online side that we can pull the roster for the CMS sections, but so if there's not an answer, that's fine. We're still digging. We weren't sure if anyone had an answer on that though.
I can get back to you on that one. I can do some digging.
Yeah, I think that was a new sort of setup that your team did, Erin, right? The HQ, or no?
No, it's the same as it would be for any of the teachers that are in those class sections. It's the same. The ELD course is the same. We just have Christy on it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. TBD, Erin. We'll get you. I think this one was answered. I'm not sure which menu it's referring to. Can SPED teachers have access to those menus?
I kind of assumed it was the PLS student roster. So
okay.
I figured in there how they could pull that up. Because where the teacher name goes, that's where they find themselves in there. But then they also have to make sure to set the staff position.
Right.
And it's as the staff position reads next to their name. So I pulled up one and it said 0 primary, 9 SPED case manager. So I set the staff position on the left column as SPED case manager, and I was able to pull them up.
Awesome.
The scholars that they're assigned to as staff support.
Thanks, Nora. You opened a can of worms with drag and drop.
I noticed that in the comments. Yeah, that was a new release this week or last week in School Pathways that you can drag and drop your files into the work sample area.
I haven't even tried it yet, from that release yet. pretty new. I don't know, Nora, if you've played around with it yet.
I have not. So
Okay.
we don't have anything to, well,
I have a clarification on it though. So drag and drop on work sample is only in the archive compliance area. So it's a different area than the PLS student roster. And I do have to test it out. It was just released on 8/15, so overnight. So it's only been 2 days. So I do have to still test it out just to make sure it's working. But yeah, it's in a specific area. So we'll get more information now on the drag and drop future for work samples, but it is a new function. So it's nice.
I got another message asking if it would be for parents, and no, because it is part of that archive area, internal. So more to come. I'm sure with compliance, they came up with Vanessa and Taylor are compliance gurus. And it was so funny during the retreat, they came up with a tagline for their department, and it's called "There's a Guide for That." So I imagine we're gonna have a guide for some drag and drop stuff in the near future. Okay, can we set up the CEM's ED specialists to have automatic access to their case loads to help with collaboration? I'm not sure I understand that question. They do have access. Do they not?
Do they have their own caseloads? They can just go right to their caseload and put it in, or do they have to search again? Or set it like per everybody, STs? They have their own. So they have their own, they can go right in and get their own caseloads.
Yeah, the PLS
Okay.
student roster. They have to search for their name as a staff, and
And
then
then it just pulls theirs up. So that was my ignorance. Sorry, because I don't get to do that, because I don't.
Yeah, I think that it's the same answer to the other question.
The other question, right? Well, I put that in before the other one was. So sorry about the redundancy. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I don't get to see those sides. So, and we're going to be working on some stuff. So more stuff goes in Contact Manager.
Okay.
And this next one's for me too, just a clarification. My understanding is that under FERPA and IDEA, there's no subpoena required. A parent can just request the records, and it would include Contact Manager, as well as if the parent authorizes an advocate, attorney, grandma, then there's no subpoena required. We have to send that information because it's a student record. Am I correct or am I off? Because that's how I've been operating.
Right, but it's not part of their CUME file that we send to other schools.
Correct.
Correct, sorry, so yeah, that's.
Yeah, so, okay. I wanted that clarified because we do get special ed requests, and they're a little different than just the nice parent request.
True.
Yeah,
And they
that's
have a
a
lot of
good-
their steps.
it's a good clarification. Like,
Mhm.
we can be subpoenaed for those Contact Manager notes, but just so everyone's aware, when a CUME file is requested and we're sending the kid off to another school, we're not, downloading and printing and giving them all those Contact Manager notes. It's our internal communications and tracking system. So that's not going to be part of their CUME.
Right, but if a parent asks
Yeah.
for those records, that's why it's so important to watch what you write in that.
Yes.
Because a parent can get a hold of those and has the right to review those and can even appeal what's in those.
Yes, and we do, Janae's right, we do have a records request process that
Mhm.
that Lindsay and her team oversees.
Which is why like copying and pasting a whole email or things like that, really just keeping it straight and to the point and just more informative than diagnostic or anything opinionated either.
So, and I just brought that up because been there, done that over the years.
No, I
especially-
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get burned.
Okay, this next question, Michelle Bateman on the historical contact notes. I'm glad she brought this up because it's one of the things when I'm trying to help people with Contact Manager, I have to mention is that the date will default to the current school year when you're doing a search for the contact notes. So the 23-24 school year is starting on August 29th. You're not going to, if you're looking for, say, a note from the beginning of enrollment, what started in March, you're not going to see it. And so you've got to be really mindful. Unfortunately, the system doesn't have a better way of like defaulting it right now, but you have to be really mindful of setting that start date to as far back as you need. So usually when I'm looking for contacts for anything 23-24 enrollment, I'm setting that start date to March 1st, because that's when enrollment opened for the 23-24 school year. But if you need more historical information, you can set that back as far as you need to gather the historical notes. Yeah, I wish it was a little not as tedious, because you also have to do it for each scope. You know, whatever scope that scholar's in, that's where you have to go to find it. So it is a little bit tedious, but also incredibly valuable to have that information stored in their dashboards. So thank you, Michelle, for bringing that question up. Is it possible to add more areas of focus in Contact Manager? Yes, absolutely. It's completely customizable. I add in the areas of focus based on requests from the directors. So if you have a subject that you need added, go through your supervisor and I will make sure. I can usually get it added within the same day. It's pretty quick. And we can add as much or as customizable as we want for those areas of focus. Let's see how much time we have. We're just a few minutes left. Let me try to look at some of these. FERPA. VP, you want to take the FERPA questions?
Sure. Let's see. Can the person listed on a scholar's dashboard, especially for example, the primary lives with, sign an MA or IEP? Is that something we need to check into further? Like especially scholars that have custody issues or McKinney-Vento or other. So primary lives with, sign an MA or IEP. I'll answer the master agreement. I think I will have to defer to Amy on the IEP part, but I think as long as that person is the parent, legal guardian, or caregiver of the scholar, they can sign the MA. If the parent is authorizing someone else to be that learning coach, they are able to sign the MA. So I think it's as long as they're an authorized contact for MA, you're good. IEP is a little different, so I'll defer to Amy on that one. And then custody issues, yeah, you have to be mindful of those custody issues because sometimes there's a parent that might not have educational rights to the scholar. So it's really dependent on what's going on with that particular family. McKinney-Vento is a little different as well. Just we have our scholar community advocate, Carla Gonzalez. So she'll be your resource for those. But as far as master agreements go for McKinney-Vento, we can't hold up enrollment for them. So if they have a parent or guardian that's enrolling them, then the parent or guardian would be the one to sign the master agreement. If it's an unaccompanied youth where they're not living with a parent or a legal guardian of such, then the scholar would be responsible to sign that MA and the ST. And sometimes our scholar community advocate can sign that master agreement as well as a support system for that particular scholar, but it's not required that she do that. So it just depends on that particular situation. I'm such a hub. I'm sorry. I say it depends.
It depends. Well, it totally does depend. That's the thing. And the thing to note about that is if you have a situation like that where, the family situation is unclear, the caregiver is unclear, the residents of your housing situation is unclear, just loop us in and we will figure it out. Like, last year we had an unaccompanied youth that it was every situation that we were not super familiar with, but as a team, and sometimes we have to go and ask legal kind of the best way to approach it either. we can figure out the best way to support the scholar. So if you have those situations, totally bring them to us and we'll help you figure it out.
For the special education question, under IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Act, that's a special ed and state regs with special education. A parent is the one who can sign the IEP. If there's a custody issue, the only way a parent can be excluded is if there's a court order taking away their ed rights. This does cause us issues because one parent can sign yes and the other one can sign no. If we are unaware of where the parents are, then there's steps that we need to take above and beyond to figure out where the parent is and try to locate them. If we cannot locate the parent after many attempts, or the parent rights have been removed and there's no one else assigned by the courts or quote acting as parent under education IDEA in California law, then we have to, special ed would assign a surrogate. So bottom line is a parent, when it comes to special education, if there's any questions on who should be at meetings or who you should be talking to about the IEPs, please reach out to us so that we can look at that in more depth when we're looking at our scholars that are with who are foster youth and foster placements, those where we can't find the parents. There's all kinds of situations out there that take place because even if they're a foster, there's certain situations where the foster parent would be considered a parent under IDEA. There's other times they cannot sign the IEP because the parents still maintain rights.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Amy, for that. We're going to try to finish up these last couple questions here before we're running out of time. The relationship between FERPA block and custody case, are they mutually exclusive? VP, you want to take that one?
Yeah, they're different. FERPA block is a written request from the parent or guardian or caregiver of the scholar. Custody case is a little different because that's a custody order. That's a legal document that comes from a courthouse, and it's just different. So they're not the same things. There's two different processes, I guess, for those.
Yeah, awesome. Gradebook and the SIS. Yes, of course we have a job aid for that. Okay, I'll get that over to you. I have a job aid and a video to help with, and I can also walk you through it. I think that's from Christy, so you can help with that for sure. And then I think one got added here about the PLP. That is an internal process within options, I believe. So that's totally up to you all. Not an operations or IT initiative. So let's see. Are there any other? I think I got through all the questions. Did I get them all? Some answered more fully than others, but
there's a new one under that staff dashboard, the work sample uploading. At the top.
Work sample uploading, a FERPA friendly way for parents to upload work samples directly to the SIS through the parent portal. There is a way, but it's not currently in place because we have to, in order to utilize that function of the SIS, we have to utilize the gradebook. And so currently the gradebook's not being utilized, and so we wouldn't be able to access that function. If in the future we do get to that point and we are rocking and rolling with the gradebook, then yes, we would be able to explore that more. And okay, I'm 1 minute over. I'm sorry, we're done. Thank you all so much. I feel like we got through a ton of information. My team is going to monitor the Padlet for a little more time. So if anybody has any more questions that they didn't, they're just thinking of afterwards, go ahead and throw it on there and we'll try to get them answered. So thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks all.